I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. I banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
Max B and Jim Jones once moved like brothers, Harlem legends bound by ambition, music, and survival. But the moment loyalty cracked, everything they'd built together collapsed into betrayal, violence, and heartbreak. What started as one of hip-hop's most promising partnerships spiraled into one of its coldest feuds. Before the fame, before the wave, there was Charlie Wingate, a kid from the Abraham Lincoln Projects in Harlem.
So Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, Max Bigavel, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
His story wasn't the type that glittered, it bled. His mother battled addiction and prison time, leaving his grandmother to raise him. She became his rock, but even her love couldn't keep the streets from calling. Harlem was temptation wrapped in opportunity, and Charlie listened. Ironically, his first stage wasn't the block, it was a choir loft. As a member of the Boys Choir of Harlem, he learned how to use melody like emotion, how to stretch pain into sound. Those harmonies planted the seeds of what would later become his signature, that slow, wavy cadence that could make even the grittiest bars sound like church music for the streets. But melody alone couldn't protect him. By 18, Charlie had fallen deep into the hustle. In 1997, he got hit with robbery charges and served nearly 8 years behind bars. It could have broken him. Instead, it remade him. Prison gave him time to think, to plot, to transform. When he walked out in 2005, he wasn't just Charlie anymore.
Her name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the
Big
name...
Jig Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig Machiavelli.
He was Max Bigavelli, a mix of Biggie, Machiavelli, and Jay-Z. The name said it all, larger than life, strategic, and smooth with it. And the timing was perfect. Harlem was alive again. The Diplomats, Cameron, Jim Jones, and Juelz Santana had the city in a chokehold. Max linked back with Cam, and through him, met Jim Jones, the self-proclaimed capo of the streets. Jim was building his own brand under Bird Gang Records, and Max was hungry. Their chemistry was instant, gritty meets melodic, hustle meets harmony. Under Dame Grease's production, Max's voice floated like smoke through the speakers. When he dropped his first mixtape, $1 Million Baby, 2006, Harlem lost its mind. His delivery was effortless, half rap, half melody, all swagger. In Bird Gang, Max wasn't just another artist, he was the secret weapon. Alongside Stack Bundles, another rising star, the team looked unstoppable. Jim had the streets, but Max had the soul. Every track he touched sounded cinematic, bigger, deeper, more emotional. But beneath the success, cracks were forming. Max had seen too much betrayal to trust easy. The industry smelled like the same streets that once burned him. And he started realizing that in this business, loyalty had an expiration date. By late 2006, Max B was living two lives, half star, half street soldier. One foot in the studio, the other still tangled in Harlem's concrete. Fame was knocking, but the old instincts wouldn't let go. That mix of hunger and heartbreak would lead to the move that changed everything, a robbery gone wrong that sent his whole world crashing. It all started with a woman, Gina Conway, Max's ex and occasional partner in the hustle. She wasn't just some girl from the block, she knew the game and how to play it. Through her, Max heard about a flashy dude named Alan J. Plowden, a self-proclaimed big shot running mortgage scams and flexing cash like he owned the city. Gina told Max about the money, the cars, the lifestyle, and that's when temptation met opportunity. Now the story depends on who you ask, but according to prosecutors, jealousy and greed twisted into a dangerous plan. Gina said Max promised her a payout, a lick that could change their lives. The move was supposed to be simple. Hit Plowden's hotel room, grab the cash, dip out clean. But what really happened turned that plan into a nightmare. Gina and Max's stepbrother, Kelvin Killer Leardam, drove out to a Holiday Inn in Fort Lee, New Jersey. They were supposed to hit the spot while Plowden was out clubbing, but the whole thing went sideways from the start. They got lost, missed exits, wasted hours. By the time they finally showed up, Plowden was already back in his room, asleep next to another woman. Then, out of nowhere, another man named David Taylor walked in. He wasn't part of any plan, he just picked the wrong night to visit.
Boyfriend Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardom.
Panic set in fast. Shots rang out, cold and final. Taylor was hit point blank, execution style. One move turned a robbery into a murder, and there was no going back. When the smoke cleared, the streets started whispering. The cops moved quick. Gina got picked up first, and once the feds started talking deals, she broke. She gave them 169 pages of statements, laying everything at Max's feet. She painted him as the mastermind, the one who set it all up and promised her forever in return. The betrayal hit hard. Max wasn't even there when the shot went off, but her words tied him to the trigger. Soon after, he was arrested and charged with felony murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy. His bail, $2 million, a price that said the system wanted him gone for good. Inside that cold New Jersey cell, time froze. His career, his freedom, even his so-called friendships, all hanging by a thread. And as the headlines lit up, one man's name started popping up again and again, Jim Jones. While Max B sat in that New Jersey cell wondering how fast his life flipped, Harlem was celebrating. Jim Jones, the man who once called him bro, had just dropped We Fly High, Ballin', and the whole city couldn't stop chanting it. The track was an instant anthem, blasting from every car window and club speaker from Uptown to ATL. But behind those catchy ad-libs and that smooth hook was a secret that burned deep. Max B swore he wrote it. According to Max, We Fly High, and a bunch of other records, came straight from his pen. He claimed he laid down the melodies, the hooks, the vibe, but while he sat locked down, Jim was outside taking the credit and stacking the cash. Every radio play, every show, every royalty check, all going to Jim, while Max couldn't even make bail. When Max's bail finally got dropped to $90,000, hope flickered for a second. Maybe Jim would look out. After all, this was family, right? Wrong. Instead of showing love, Jim allegedly flipped it into a power play. Reports say he agreed to post Max's bail only if Max signed over his publishing rights and locked himself into a 6-album deal under Jim's Bird Gang label. That's not business. That's a shakedown. Trapped in a cell with no options, Max did what he had to. He signed. Freedom came, but at a cost. Jim walked away with the keys to Max's music, and Max walked out broke, bound, and boiling with resentment. When Max B hit the streets again in 2007, something in him had changed. The charm was still there, that Harlem cool, that lazy drawl, but the love was gone.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
He'd seen the industry's real face, contracts over loyalty, paper over brotherhood. He was done playing nice. And Jim, he was glowing up. Big chains, designer coats, TV cameras following him everywhere. The same man who once depended on Max's sound now owned it. Every wavy hook Max ever recorded was funneling money straight into Jim's pockets. Every melody Max built became Jim's property on paper. That broke something inside of Max B. You could hear it in his voice, see it in his interviews. The smile was gone, replaced with quiet fury. To him, Jim wasn't just a label boss anymore. He was a thief in a tailored suit, living off another man's pain. So Max started plotting. He wasn't gonna cry about what he lost. He was gonna take it back. Publicly, loudly, and with no filter. The first move? Cut ties with Bird Gang. For good. Max walked out of that deal ready for war. The man Jim thought he owned was about to show the whole world what betrayal does to a genius. And this time, he wasn't coming alone.
Got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
When Max B walked away from Bird Gang, he wasn't just leaving a label, he was declaring war. The streets felt it instantly. The Harlem kid who once made hits for Jim Jones was now his loudest enemy. Max was tired of contracts, fake loyalty, and broken promises. So when he linked up with French Montana, another Bronx hustler who had his own score to settle with Jim, the game flipped overnight. At the time, French wasn't the chart-topping superstar we know today. He was still heavy in the streets, running his Cocaine City DVD series, showing raw footage, interviews, and behind-the-scenes street life that the industry tried to ignore. And guess what? French already had tension with Jim, too. Word on the block was that Jim had spread foul rumors about him after a Bronx shootout.
Banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram his up, ram it up his. Right? My window was there, he tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
So when Max met French, it wasn't just a collaboration, it was an alliance built on revenge. They called their movement Coke Wave, and from the moment it dropped, the energy was electric. Max's melodic flow mixed with French's raw delivery created a whole new lane. Street rap that sounded smooth enough to sing along to. They didn't have a label, no marketing machine, no big budgets, just talent, mixtapes, and pure hunger. But Max wasn't content to just make music. He wanted to make noise. His first shot came with the mixtape Public Domain 3. The cover said it all.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
Max standing in a graveyard with tombstones marked Jim Jones and Jules Santana. That was a statement, plain and simple. The old Dipset era was dead, and Max was dancing on its grave. The tracks were brutal, direct shots, clever disses, and plenty of name dropping. Max accused Jim and his crew of stealing his sound, calling them Milli Vanilli rappers who lip-synced their way to fame. One line had everyone talking. I gave them the loot, but them dudes done blew it. The streets couldn't get enough. Finally, someone was fearless enough to call out Harlem's so-called bosses. But the real explosion came when Max dropped She Touched It in Miami. That track crossed every line possible. Max claimed that Jim's longtime girlfriend, Chrissy Lampkin, had been with him, painting it in graphic, disrespectful detail. Whether it was true or not didn't even matter. The damage was done. The streets went wild. Jim was humiliated, and Max became the most talked about name in New York. Jim tried to downplay it, calling Max washed and denying everything. But the people weren't buying it. Max had the receipts, old reference tracks, the original We Fly High vocals, and a wave of fans calling Jim a fraud. Then came the streets. Word spread that Jim tried to roll up on Max in a parking lot, but Max wasn't the type to freeze. He allegedly rammed Jim's Bentley, hopped out swinging, and left dents as proof. Max even bragged about it later, showing off his car like a badge of honor. By late 2008, the beef was full-blown chaos. Max and French even pulled up on Jim in Manhattan, walking right into a studio building where he was recording. Word is, Jim panicked and called the cops. From that day on, Max called him Capo, a nickname that stuck hard in Harlem. Clubs turned into battle zones. Crews were fighting, chairs flying, and cops showing up with K9s to break it up. This wasn't just rap beef, this was personal. By the time the smoke cleared, Max B wasn't just another artist dissing for clout. He was a folk hero, the wavy outlaw who stood up to the industry and refused to bow to anyone. By 2009, Max B had become a full-blown legend in the streets. Wavy music everywhere, mixtapes flooding Harlem, and fans treating him like the people's champ. But while the beef with Jim Jones was making headlines, another fight, way bigger, was waiting for him inside a courtroom. The same robbery gone wrong that started this whole chain of chaos had finally caught up to him. On June 9th, 2009, Max B walked into the Bergen County Courthouse with that trademark confidence. Smooth, calm, chin up, waving to cameras like he was stepping onto a red carpet instead of trial. But make no mistake, the stakes were life or death. He was facing felony murder, armed robbery, and aggravated assault, charges that could bury him in prison for the rest of his life. His defense team talked big before the trial. They said they tore holes through the prosecution's story and that the star witness, Gina Conway, Max's ex, couldn't be trusted. They painted her as a scorned woman looking to save herself after everything went south. And honestly, they weren't wrong. Gina had already cut a deal, trading truth for freedom. Gina's testimony was brutal. She claimed Max sent her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Killer Leardam, to rob Alan Plowden at the Holiday Inn, promising her money and loyalty forever. She gave the feds a 169-page statement, the same one that pinned Max as the mastermind. The defense clapped back, saying Gina was lying through her teeth to get her sentence cut down. They said she used Max's name to manipulate her boyfriend into doing the job, then later turned around and blamed Max to protect herself. But this wasn't the streets. This was court. Swagger and street code don't move juries the way evidence does. The prosecution called Max the puppet master, saying he set everything in motion, then sat back to collect the profits while others pulled the trigger. They had one mission: make him the villain of his own story. When the verdict came in, the whole room went silent. The jury found Max guilty on 9 out of 11 counts. The man who had invented the wave, the sound that inspired a whole new generation, was now facing 75 years in prison. 75. On September 3rd, 2009, the judge dropped the hammer. Max B stood there emotionless, maybe numb from everything he'd already lost. The courtroom energy was heavy. Fans cried, friends cursed, even reporters went quiet. The dream was over. The waviest man alive was now inmate number 704105D. And out in the world, while people mourned, Jim Jones looked untouchable, still dropping records, still cashing out, still owning Max's publishing. He thought the wave had finally died. The gavel dropped, the cell door slammed, and the world thought Max B was finished. 75 years. That's a life sentence in disguise. The industry moved on, but the streets, they never let go. While Jim Jones celebrated, thinking he'd silenced his loudest critic, Max was behind bars building something bigger than revenge, a legacy. Even in prison, the wave lived on. Max found ways to keep his voice moving, sending verses through phone calls, writing hooks from a cell, and feeding music to DJs and mixtape kings who refused to let his name fade. He couldn't perform, but his sound echoed through Harlem like a ghost that wouldn't rest. Fans still screamed "Wavy Baby" in every corner of New York. Then, in May 2010, everything flipped again. A judge finally ruled that Jim Jones no longer controlled Max B's publishing or music rights. The contracts from 2005 and 2007 fulfilled. Jim couldn't make another dime off Max's wave. It was poetic justice. The same man who'd once trapped him with paperwork had just been stripped of all power over him. Behind bars, Max got the news and smiled for the first time in years. Freedom wasn't here yet, but his art was finally his again. That same year, he dropped Vigilante Season, an album that sounded like a man writing through iron bars, raw emotion, melodic pain, unfiltered truth. It reminded everyone that no cell could cage creativity. And as time passed, Max's influence grew instead of fading. The wavy cadence, that melodic talk-sing style he invented, became the blueprint for a whole new generation. You could hear his fingerprints in Drake, Wiz Khalifa, ASAP Rocky, and especially French Montana, who kept repping his name heavy in interviews and songs. Even Kanye West got pulled into the current. In 2016, when he tried naming his album Waves, the internet erupted. Fans said, "That's Max's word." Kanye had to acknowledge it publicly, even featuring Max's voice on the track Silver Surfer Intermission. That's how powerful his presence was. Even from prison, he could shake up the biggest names in the game. Then came the miracle nobody expected. In 2016, Max's new legal team filed for post-conviction relief, arguing that his first lawyer botched the case. And it worked. His original 75-year sentence got tossed out. Max took a plea for aggravated manslaughter, cutting his sentence down from 75 years to 20, then to 12. After 7 long years behind bars, the wave finally caught a current. His official release date, November 9th, 2025. Freedom at last. By then, Max wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was an icon, a myth, a movement. Artists who never met him called him a godfather of melody. The man the system tried to bury ended up reshaping hip-hop's sound. Now, as that release date creeps closer, everyone's asking, will he and Jim Jones ever bury the hatchet? Max says he's changed. He's a husband, a father, a man with perspective. But Jim, still cold. Even after rekindling with French Montana, he keeps that distance. The wounds run too deep. Still, one thing's clear. The wave never died. It just waited. And when Max B steps back into the world, Harlem better brace itself, because the real wave is coming home. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories just like this. Because trust, when Max walks free, that's not just hip-hop history, that's prophecy.